Okay, good morning, everyone. It is the 10 o'clock hour. Today is Tuesday, July 28th, 2020. The Board of Supervisors of the County of Del Norte and the governing body of all other special assessment and taxing districts for which said board so acts is now meeting in regular session. Only those items that indicate a specific time will be heard at the assigned times. All other items may be taken out of sequence to accommodate the public and staff availability. So at this time, Kylie, would you please take roll?
Supervisor Howard?
Present.
Supervisor Cowan?
Here.
Supervisor Gitlin? I think you're muted, Supervisor Gitlin.
Here.
Supervisor Berkowitz?
Here.
Chair Hemmingson?
Here. Now we will take a moment of reflection. And now if you all please stand, Supervisor Howard, would you please lead us in the pledge?
Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Introduction of new employees. Do we have any?
Not that I'm aware of at this point.
Okay. Thank you. County Council, actions from closed session.
There is nothing to report.
Thank you. At this time, I would request any deletions, corrections, or additions from board members to the agenda. In order to add an item to the agenda, the matter must have come to the attention of the county subsequent to the posting of the agenda, and the matter requires action before the next regular meeting of the Board of Supervisors. We do have an urgency item that was requested to be put on by Director Snow, opposing SB 217 unless amended. If the board so desires, I would entertain a motion to put that on the agenda as an urgency item.
I'll make that motion, Chairman.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Is there any public comment?
Chair, yes, I do have a couple of public comments coming in. Give me 1 second. Linda, you are on. Looks like you might have to unmute your mic.
Okay, thank you. I want to know what SB 217 is and why it follows the guidelines of urgency. Hello?
Is there any other public comment?
Denise, you're on.
Hi, my name is Denise Doyle Schnacker, and I am a resident of Del Norte County. We are actually on the front of the Flynn Center steps at the sign with a lot of folks who are very concerned about the lack of leadership or the silence of our Board of Supervisors, who have not spoken up against what Roger Gitlin has said in public regarding our community members. He has incited violence by encouraging community members, my neighbors, to basically erase what we have done in our community, what we are doing in our community. And I'm very concerned about the fact that the other supervisors have not said one word against the racism, the bigotry, the misogyny, the hate speech that their colleague has decided to spew in our community. Recently, specifically July 10th, and then again 2 days ago. And so I am here basically to ask that they step up and denounce hate and bigotry and racism in Del Norte County.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment on this item? We're talking about adding an item, an urgency item to the agenda. So if you could keep your comments to that, we would appreciate that. Are there any other comments?
Chair, I'm not seeing any other comments.
Okay, would you poll the vote, please?
Supervisor Gitlin?
Point of order, please. A caller called in and is unsure about SB 217. Perhaps someone, Mr. Serena, would you explain what 217 is so the public has a clear picture of what we are voting on?
This was brought forward by Director Snow, and I believe she's on.
This motion is just to put it on the agenda. Then when we get to the item, we'll discuss it. Isn't that correct, Chair?
That is correct. And you should have received that, Supervisor Gitlin. Did you not receive and read it?
I have
So you-
I heard a public comment and a question, and it was not responded to. So if it's going to be discussed later in the agenda, that's fine. And I vote in favor of putting it on the agenda on an emergency basis for explanation during this meeting.
Okay,
Supervisor Berkowitz?
Yes.
Supervisor Cowan?
Yes.
Supervisor Howard?
Yes.
Chair Hemmingson?
yes. Okay, so we'll put that item on, and now we will receive brief reports or announcement relative to the county programs, projects, progress of 2x2 committees, goal committees, and or board staff travel and training reports. And we will start with Supervisor Berkowitz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Last week, the Crescent City Del Norte County Chamber of Commerce held its monthly meeting where we approved a new chamber ambassador. We also moved our financials from Teamwork HR and McPheron's bookkeeping to CBH. We were given a wrap up of the 4th of July activities and also got a preview of the upcoming sea cruise. Blake Inscore gave a report of the activities of the Visitors Bureau, and Cindy Vosberg gave her director's report. Lastly, I continue to hear from constituents and businesses about when the county will return to more normal, with the businesses hopefully able to open up. I hope that Dr. Rehwald will give us an update at this very meeting. And that's my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Supervisor Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I attended via Zoom a first 5 family commissions meeting. Also had a meeting with Supervisor Cowan on the Del Norte Solid Waste Management Authority. We had a 2x2 with the Toloadini Nation. Chairman Hemmingson and I attended that, and there will be an item that will hopefully appear in our future agenda once council and staff reviews, but that'll be to review the Toloa's upcoming compact negotiations with the state of California. And in addition, we both Supervisor Hemmingson and I participated in a meeting with Sheriff Apperson on the upcoming initiative for our November ballot, and had discussions with Mayor Inscore and Kevin O'Donnell from the Sister City International, discussing our participation in the remembrance of the 75th anniversary of the dropping of the bomb in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which would be remembered through the tolling of a bell here in our community on August 8th. And the city is considering moving forward with a proclamation. If they do and approve that, I would like the county to join in that proclamation in remembrance of that, the bomb dropping during World War II and the hope and renewal of that relationship that has sprung forward from that. The also had a meeting with the Chamber of Commerce on the Going for Gold Committee, which is the committee that was formed with tribes, the county, the city, to gather momentum and marketing from the launch of the Kamome project with NBC. As many of you probably are aware and have seen by now, that project has moved forward and has received great response. I've spoken to both the producer and the cinematographer, both the projects, and they're getting great response. Hopefully we'll see an Emmy out of this for them, but it's definitely gathering quite a bit of stir outside of our community with calls to local businesses that participated, and really looking forward to seeing it actually play for 30 million people if the Olympics are held next year in Japan. And lastly, I'd like to mention I have received several calls and concerns from constituents, similar to what was mentioned during the last public comment about Supervisor Gitlin's actions on Facebook and other social media. There's a definite fear out there. I'm glad one person, and at least at our last meeting, decided to speak out, Ms. Storman, and then also today with Ms. Schnacker's comments. I believe there's no room for these kind of actions or comments from a sitting supervisor. I know censure has been brought up. We've discussed this in the past as a board, but these comments that are being made, there's no room for that type of racism in our community. And I want to make that statement public. There is absolute fear by individuals who have called me for actually speaking out against this particular supervisor for reasons of retaliation and responses that have been made through emails that have been shared with other people that are supportive of Supervisor Gitlin and calling out their businesses specifically, or where their parents even work. So that kind of retaliation strikes fear into the hearts of people in our community. It's a First Amendment free speech thing. I get it. However, as a sitting supervisor, we're here to provide leadership for our community in a positive nature, especially in these trying times with COVID. And that's the statement I'd like to make today, Chairman, and end that. On that note, appreciate your time.
Thank you. Roger.
Well, yes, thank you. I appreciate I'm being the center of attention. I'll address that shortly. I did want to discuss COVID-19 and our latest numbers. We have 2 active cases in Del Norte County. 3,700 plus tests have been conducted. A total of 88 individuals have contracted the virus and 86 have recovered. There are no hospitalizations for the virus and 0 deaths associated with the COVID-19. In connection to that, CDCR reports that at this point, the census of inmates throughout its 35 institution system is 101,376. That's a reduction of about 13,000 inmates from March of this year. Pelican Bay has never experienced a COVID-19 virus among inmate population. Among staff, CDCR reports Pelican Bay has experienced 27 cases of the virus. We'll be talking with Dr. Raywalt about that specifically. There are a total of 4 who've returned to work, and the balance are recuperating from what was deemed a 14-day reduced to a 10-day quarantine at their homes. And again, those employees are reporting back to work very shortly. 0 deaths, no hospitalizations. Our PIP program is off and running well. We're into week 5. The Zoom meeting we conducted with City Manager Ware and staff regarding volunteer programs to assist the city. We met with senior city public maintenance staff, Jason Wiley, who identified areas in need of attention along sidewalks, curbs, and gutters within the city. Property owners, residential and commercial, are responsible for the abatement of the weeds and overgrowth on their own homes and businesses, and 5 feet into the street per city ordinance. Again, we are looking for volunteers to assist. We meet every Wednesday at 10 a.m. at the Battery Point Park Lighthouse parking lot and for dispersal around the cities. And we're currently working on Howe Drive, assisting the city who has been challenged with funding issues due to the COVID-19 virus, and they greatly appreciate all of the assistance. We are conducting an outreach to neighbor counties to develop law enforcement support proclamations, and that is in work. Northern California, Modoc, Siskiyou, Lassen, Trinity, and Humboldt counties have been contacted and moving forward with agenda items, hopefully. Our neighbor to the north, Curry County, and its Commissioner Court Boyce, who is Vice Chair, is working with Curry County neighbors, Douglas, Coos, Josephine, Jackson, and Klamath counties to adopt a strong proclamation in support and enforcement of law enforcement and first responders in conjunction with Commissioner Boyce's outreach. I've contacted those counties which we have just mentioned to you. Law enforcement, contrary to anyone's opinion, one has to only look across the country, is under siege in the United States. We do not live in a bubble in Del Norte or across rural Oregon and California. Many in law enforcement, in fact, are choosing to opt out of their careers and choose another career path. Many are just going to outright retire. So the opportunity is now for us to attract many of these fine trained officers to our community to help us in enforcing our local laws. And Del Norte County is a wonderful place to relocate to. And I hope that the message goes out that law enforcement folks who are considering ending their careers in other parts of the country will come out here and take a look at us. We've discussed before the problem of vehicle villages, 22651. We've added paragraph K in addressing vehicles parked for excessive times on the streets. And we do have a recurring problem on Railroad Avenue in East Washington. I'm happy to say the Highway Patrol is addressing that, and vehicles are moving out and the villages are being dismantled. And I'm recognize that for a very positive step. Now, the issue has come up, and again, there's a billboard, two of them, California Endowment Billboard, which is frankly offensive, racist, and divisive. For the record, Mrs. Schnacker, Supervisor Howard, I don't hate anyone. I just have an opinion which is different than yours. We're not outing anybody. I'm not encouraging anybody to do any kind of violence, quite the contrary. But we must recognize that opinions that are different than the ones that we hold must be tolerated. It's a two-way street. And when I see a billboard which promulgates a racial group above another, that is in fact racism, but it's the other way. It's not European American racism. It's a minority racism, and it should not and cannot be tolerated. And Mrs. Schnacker, I would hope that you would look around and take a look around and see that our words, we don't really disagree, but you want to demonize me, it will be unsuccessful. Same thing, Supervisor Howard, with your spreading of your nonsense about the threats that we're causing. We have opinions that are different, and you ought to learn how to tolerate and embrace those opinions. And that's my report.
Thank you. Vice Chair Cowan.
Thank you, Chairman. Past couple of weeks, I've had a conversation with Aaron from Assemblyman Wood's office regarding local issues and things going on with them. Spoke with Heather Snow regarding the progress on mobile showers and the MOU that we're working with the Senior Center on that particular item. As Supervisor Howard mentioned, we had a Solid Waste Authority meeting. We're continuing to give out the Green Ribbon Awards this month with Meredith Knowles from the Del Norte Food Council. Thank you again for all your work there, Meredith. Spoke with a constituent regarding tansy weed and the lack of professional contractors that we have in here in Del Norte County and his concerns. Spoke with Daphne, as I normally do, quite often regarding Del Norte Mission Possible and the great work that's going on actually as we speak with the shower program every Tuesday. So this week just helped her get supplies and things that she needed, and just an update on what's going on over there as well. Just like everyone else, many constituent calls and emails regarding COVID, what's going on, what we can and cannot do. We certainly have restrictions, but I am one who is grateful that we are not on what I call the governor's hit list yet. Many other counties are, and are in situations that are much more restrictive than we are in Del Norte County. I also, as Supervisor Howard did, I've received calls and communications regarding the billboards, and not so much the billboard, but just Mr. Gitlin's behavior and comments. I get that they're different, but there's a way of voicing your opinions without being demeaning or raging or I don't know, hateful. And it's a problem. I've had to deal with it quite a bit the last couple of weeks, which is a little bit more than normal, but it's something we've all dealt with, and it continues. So that's it for me.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I had several meetings as well. Had an RCRC executive meeting where we were dealing with an evaluation for our president CEO, where we learned of his pending retirement. Very disappointing to hear. He's been there for a long time and been a great asset to the rural representation that we have. So it's pretty sad news that I bring that of his retirement. We're sorry to hear that. We'll be looking for a replacement. At a Norte meeting, which is the Northern Rural Training and Employment Consortium, where we had an executive director evaluation that is continuing. I had a agenda review. I had a working group, whale working group call to assess the risk assessment management plan rules and regulations that we're dealing with for the future. So we're looking at that. As Supervisor Howard mentioned, we had a meeting with the sheriff and staff on the tax initiative, so I won't go into that. Also, Supervisor Howard and I had a 2x2 with the Tawadini Nation concerning their gaming compact. They addressed some COVID issues that they're taking care of at their business. Some monies that they're getting from the CARES Act, and some mutual traffic problems that we're having that we would like to get solution to. And as was mentioned, I get a lot of calls on the COVID issues and what we're doing and where we're going, as well as comments on what was discussed with Roger and his issues. And as he stated from the very start, all he's looking for is attention. And so he's getting that. And I don't want to put more attention on it than it deserves. I do agree with Supervisor Howard, but I'm not going to go into it any further because it really doesn't come to the level of really talking about, in my opinion. You just need to ignore him. There is no value in what he's saying. He's just inciting things. So that's my opinion, which is certainly different than his. So we are going to move on. We'll take up the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Okay.
Second that motion.
I have a motion and a second. Any public comment, Kylie, on the consent agenda?
I do have a written public comment in regards to item number 13, which is the amendment to the law enforcement resolution.
Okay.
And I'm going to go ahead and start. It is from John Alexander. And it says, I have read and witnessed with increasing alarm the broad brush of racism which has recently been applied to law enforcement across America. I cannot speak to other areas of our country where that indeed may exist. But as an attorney with over 35 years working in that system and having had the privilege of representing all entities and arms of that system as a former district attorney in our county, I feel compelled to speak out now in defense of any aspersion that tarring brush may extend to the brave men and women of our county who protect all of us day and night, in and out. I have never seen 1 ounce, 1 scintilla, or whatever quorum you might wish to apply of racism or bigotry of any sort or type here in Del Norte County. We all share the same shock at the murder of George Floyd, and I support the most vigorous prosecution of the persons involved in his tragic and criminal death. That said, that incident in faraway Minneapolis, should not and cannot be grounds to in any way tarnish the people and departments on the front lines here in Del Norte County. As a citizen and former top-ranking representative of law enforcement in our county, I would like to take this moment to thank all of these courageous men and women for the excellent, selfless, and indeed colorblind job they do on all of our behalfs. In closing, I would like to also acknowledge the investigators and staff of the District Attorney's Office who, however, unintentionally have been overlooked in the past. It was an honor and privilege to work with you all. And that was the only written public comment I had relating to consent. And I have public comment online. Give me 1 second. And Linda Sutter, you are on. It looks like you just have to unmute your mic.
Okay, thank you. On number 6, it talks about the county received for school district $25,700 for equipment for, it's not really clear. It said for use in terrorism and stuff. So I'd like to know exactly what kind of equipment are we talking about? Are we going to be issuing handguns to the teachers, or exactly what is it that they're going to be getting?
Chairman, I can answer that if you'd like.
Yeah, why don't you? Okay, this is not question and answer time. This is public comment time. I'll reiterate that again. But
Oh
go
my
ahead, Jay.
God, no. If it's on the agenda, we have a right to ask the questions. That's the purpose of a public meeting, Chair Hemmingson. It's not to say, oh, you can't ask us questions. Now, if that's the way you feel about it, that's fine. I will be happy to submit another FPPC complaint against you.
Okay.
For not sharing with the public information and questions we have regarding an agenda item. That's the purpose of an agenda item, is to
public
discuss
comment.
and inform the public.
Jay, go ahead and answer the question if you would, please.
So this item is agendized and in a report in the agenda online. The subaward agreement with the school district would be for medical trauma kits for all K through 12 classrooms.
Okay. Is there any other public comment, Kylie?
Yes, give me 1 second. Robert, you are good to go. You just need to unmute your mic.
Hi, guys. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. My comments just in regard to the law enforcement initiative. I think we do support law enforcement. We a lot of our money, a lot of our general fund goes to it. And about 16 months ago, the sheriff's team caught a break into my business. You got to start with the good. That's really hard to do, to actually catch a perpetrator in the middle of the night. They're usually pretty quick. They had 4 people, 2 people respond, and then another 2 officers, and they nailed it real quick. And we're very professional about it. But that hasn't always been my experience. In 2008, I showed up to the Board of Supervisors meeting when they were going to change a cannabis initiative. And within 2 weeks, I had Officers Rivera and Officers Tanias come to my house without a warrant in plain clothes and basically search the outside of my home without any consent or warrant, because I spoke in public, so it was a violation of my First Amendment speech. In fact, until Apperson was elected, I had a lot of encounters. I opened up a tie-dye shop on South Beach, and eventually I stopped calling the cops because I felt I was likely to be shot, to be honest. There was one officer that would respond, and I guess they knew I grew a little bit of weed and smoked some weed because I spoke up in 2008. And so I was always more the subject of the investigation. So about 17 windows broken at that little tie-dye shop. I stopped calling the cops. I eventually figured out who was doing it and talked to them myself. About 2 years ago, I was pulled over by the park rangers, And they were completely ready to shoot through my children in the back seats because, again, I smelled a little bit like weed after working the day at a weed shop where we used to weigh the weed. It was on my birthday. I was on a hike on Walker Road. It turned into an encounter with 4 officers that were going to shoot my children if I made the wrong move to make sure a bullet got to me. You know, and so, and this is 70% of our general fund goes to this. You know, all the money that I've raised for cannabis taxes goes to this. And I think the sheriff's doing a great job, but on our budget, there's a $6,000 costume for a mascot, you know, while we're about to ask for a tax, you know. We used our economic development fund, the Stimson fund, to buy the DA a car. We do support law enforcement. At some point, we have to actually look at the budget and ask if some of the expenditures make any sense, you know. We bought a costume. I wanted a Sasquatch costume to put in a tie-dye dress and put out by the highway, but it was really expensive. So I bought a $20 Ted 2 costume and put that in a tie-dye dress, you know, and I think that could have been dressed up in a sheriff's uniform. And there's been many encounters I've had, and I've learned, spread my fingers, get in my headlights, you know, because I show up in the middle of the night to respond to these. And I haven't felt intimidated since Apperson's been elected. But I tell you what, sometimes if somebody doesn't like you, you can be, I'm sure $250,000 was spent on me for them to come to my house, you know, the labor to investigate somebody like that. And then to find out that 70% of your money is going to that. We do support law enforcement. I offer 10% discount at our store to law enforcement, teachers, and first responders and veterans. And it's well taken and well received, but that doesn't mean we should blindly just make proclamations and things. We should read the budget and support them in meaningful ways. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Robert. Any other public comment, Kylie?
Yes, give me 1 second. It's typed in Kizzy Blady. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but you're on. You looks like you just have to unmute your mic.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Chris Elton, and that's Kijeb Lady. It means morning lady, Ojibwe. I called in today. First of all, let me thank the supervisors who called out Roger Gitlin. I called in today because I'm not going to be silent in the face of racism in this county. I've watched at home, online, as Del Norte County Supervisor Roger Gitlin has repeatedly made divisive, racist public remarks on social media. And as a Native woman in this community, I'm here to ask the rest of you to continue to hold him accountable. First, I had to watch as he, via social media, invited folks from off reservation to the Log Cabin Diner in Klamath in May. To the people who live in Klamath, Gitlin, you showed us that you have no regard for us or for the sovereignty of the Yurok Nation. The Yurok Reservation has had no cases of COVID-19, and council has kept the reservation closed because we are a high-risk community. Gitlin, your actions caused divisions throughout the county. Not once did the people of Klamath feel as though anyone in authority at the county level was out there supporting us. Where were you, Supervisor Berkowitz? We were left to support each other with the leadership of the tribe. Shame on this county for not stepping in then and doing something about Gitlin's actions. Not only that, Supervisor Gitlin has recently used social media as a platform to expose his racist anti-Black Lives Matter rhetoric. Clearly a response to the proclamation in support of equality and accountability the county voted to declare with his divisive vote of present. On a post, Gitlin, that you've since taken down, you quote Franklin Graham with, quote, "The American dream ended November 6, 2012. The second term of Barack Obama has been the final nail in the coffin for the white Christian males who discovered, explored, pioneered, settled, and developed the greatest republic in history," end quote. I'm not going to read more from this post because this sums up the rest of Graham's ethnocentric and xenophobic views. What you fail to mention is that this land was already occupied. This, the land you stand on, is the home of the Tallawahdaini people. And it was through slavery, including Native Americans in California, that this nation was developed. You also failed to acknowledge how those white Christian males acquired such land and resources: through oppression, enslavement, kidnapping, and genocide. Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter doesn't say that white lives don't, but white lives have never been under attack the way Black lives have in this nation. This is not an attack on your whiteness. It's an attack on racists and a racist system. It's time to make right the statements of the Declaration of Independence. Black Lives Matter is a response to the historic racism and oppression forced onto our Black brothers and sisters. It's shocking how little folks know about the experiences of Black folks from their emancipation until now. Jim Crow, mass incarceration, police brutality, and this mentality, this white supremacist perspective that guided the laws of the day has never gone away. One of the first questions I asked when I moved to Del Norte in 2007 was, where are the Black folk? I'm reminded of the fact that it wasn't until 1926 that the state of Oregon removed the state ban on Blacks in their constitution. I'm also reminded of the fact that the state of California paid for the extermination of their, quote, Indian problem. I love that little black boy on that billboard by the harbor declaring that his life matters. It's beautiful and affirming in a land where Black folks have been criminalized repeatedly for the color of their skin since they were drugged to this continent as slaves. Mr. Gitlin, your racist comments on social media are threatening and are not the comments of a leader who wants to bring people together. If there is a time for us to dig deep within ourselves and actually come together, learn about, have hard conversations, and listen to the experiences of our sisters and brothers of color, it is now. As for the other elected county supervisors,
your 3 minutes is up. Thank you for your comments. Appreciate it. Kylie, is there anything else? You're on mute if you're talking to me. I can't.
Chair Hemmingson, since this is still the consent agenda, if we could remind folks that these are consent agenda items only.
Yeah, we're taking comment on consent agenda items. You won't get a second bite at the public comment if you commented as a public comment. Kylie, is there anything else?
Yeah, Lisa Howard, you're on.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, well, good morning, everyone. This is Lisa Howard, and I would like to put forward some positive messaging this morning. Due to the times in which we live with COVID-19, I'd like to advocate for a healing-centered county with a narrative that includes diversity, equity, and inclusion for all people living in Del Norte. Our current COVID situation can exacerbate our adverse childhood experiences and the issues that already exist in our county, such as increased drug and alcohol use, as well as spousal and child abuse. Continuing to build caring and trustful relationships within our county will be the key to combating COVID. With this said, language is the way we tell people you belong here, or conversely, you don't belong here, and affects others' feelings and emotions around current circumstances. When we unknowingly put up barriers and stressors, when we speak, it causes problems. Our communal values need to be embedded into Del Norte messaging. And as the board, you have the microphone. Please commit to ensuring that our communal narrative is one of strength and contains a continual message of hope. The COVID situation is a disruption in our routines, for sure, but wasn't meant to be personally targeted for you. We need to change our catastrophic mindset to ensure our community to say, hey, community, with our new routines, what can we accomplish? Use this as an opportunity to see the strengths within ourselves. I employ you as a board of supervisors to lead the way in this community with your words as well as actions to move us forward positively. Next month, we reopen schools in a different variation, and it will again establish new routines for our families, school staff, and our community. It can be an exciting opportunity to learn together if we frame the conversation in that way. Your youngest constituents are relying on you to lead and teach them through your words of strength and kindness. These bright young minds will follow your lead and do what you do. So please show them the way. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Any other comments, Kylie?
Yes, give me 1 second. Denise, you're on.
Hi, my name is Michaela.
Oh, okay.
So I moved to this county about 1.5 years ago, and I just want to say that as another Native American woman, I never really felt welcome here, and it's because of the constant language that I see represented by Roger Gitlin and many other members in this community of hate and just, intolerance. And I want to say, as a Native American woman, that calling out racism of white people, Mr. Gitlin, is not racist. In fact, racism is institutional And it is a tactic used to marginalize people of color. White people are not marginalized, therefore white people are not being target of racism just because people are calling them racist because of their racist actions. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment on the consent agenda items? Please keep your comments to the consent agenda.
I got one more. It says Michaela, so I'm wondering if there was a mix-up. Michaela, it says you're on. Are you still there? It says your mute is muted. Your mic is muted, and you should be able to talk. And she disappeared. So I'm assuming she was the one that just spoke, and there was a little mix-up when she raised her hand, is what I'm thinking, Chair.
Okay, thank you. So no other public comment?
Not that I'm seeing.
Okay. Any comments or questions from board members? Kylie, would you please poll the vote?
Supervisor Berkowitz.
Yes.
Supervisor Gitlin.
Yes.
Supervisor Howard.
Yes.
Supervisor Cowan.
Yes.
Chair Hemmingson.
Yes, I need to recuse myself on items number 7 and item number 9.
Number 7 and number 9, Chair?
Yes.
Okay.
And Lori, item number 2 was a proclamation that we just passed. Would you please read that?
Yes, thank you. I'm going to read the proclamation of the 19th Amendment's centennial. Whereas the 19th Amendment recognized the significance of women's suffrage, which when ratified in 1920, affirmed citizenship of more than 26 million women and granted them a mechanism to empower themselves, their families, and their communities. And whereas the 19th Amendment was ratified on August 18th, 1920, and whereas the year 2020 marks the 100th anniversary of the passage of the 19th Amendment and offers an unparalleled opportunity to commemorate a milestone of democracy. Therefore, be it resolved, Del Norte County Board of Supervisors is proud to recognize the ratification of the 19th Amendment marked the end of a 3-generation struggle to win the right to vote for women. And be it further resolved that the Del Norte County Board of Supervisors supports GFWC, which is a General Federal of Women's Club, and Crescent City's Women's Club, and hold a 19th Amendment Centennial Festival, a mock, to be held on the courthouse parking lot on August 18th, 2020 from 1 to 5 p.m. to mark the 100th anniversary of women winning the right to vote, passed and adopted by the Del Norte County Board of Supervisors on this 28th day of July, 2020. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're past 10:25, but we are going to take up a public comment period at this time. Members of the public may address the board on matters which are within the jurisdiction of the board. If you are addressing the board regarding a matter listed on the agenda, you may be asked to hold your comments until the board takes up that matter. We will limit you to 3 minutes. Is there any public comment, Kylie?
I have 3 written public comments.
Okay.
The first one is from Mike Thornton. And it says, as the county supervisors are quite aware of outgoing Supervisor Roger Gitlin's continuing campaign of sowing distrust and division in his community, do the rest of you have any plans for cleaning up the mess that he's leaving behind? If so, can you share that with your constituents? The virus of bigotry that Roger Gitlin spreads for his own self-aggrandizement will continue to affect the health of this community for a long time after he leaves, to very likely do the same thing to the people in Medford, Oregon. They have my condolences. I sincerely hope there's a plan to help the community heal from the trauma he's inflicted here. I got another one from Sarah Elston, and it says, I'm appalled and saddened by Roger Gitlin's open racism and homophobia seen in the public social media posts. There is no place in this county for such unabashed and toxic statements. It is embarrassing that the other supervisors remain silent on these issues and in some cases loudly agree with Mr. Gitlin. Del Norte County is better than this ignorance and hate. We need county leaders who are educated, professional, and desire unity, not those who push a hateful and racist agenda. I appreciate Mr. Gitlin's efforts to clean up our city. However, at the same time, he's filling that same city with trash in how he perceives and talks about the LGBTQ community and people of color. Del Norte County Board of Supervisors, I urge you to do your job and take your position seriously. This rhetoric is disgusting, and your silence serves as agreement with his hate-filled ramblings. You all ought to be ashamed of yourselves. If you cannot bring your integrity and professionalism to your positions as supervisors, Del Norte residents will be happy to begin recalling what supervisors are left after November 3rd. This behavior is unacceptable. Del Norte County is no place for hate. And I have one more written public comment, and it's from Maggie Rasmussen. And it says, it makes me sad to think that our small special community has people who still spew hate, racism, and bigotry. Staying silent only shows your support to these horrible people. Stand up and do your job. Make sure these people know that they don't have your support by being silent. We are all watching your response, and it will be what guides us in the future. Remember, you work for us. And that's it for written.
Okay.
And I'm going to go ahead and go on to people who are online. And Linda, you are on. You just need to unmute your mic.
Okay, first off, I'd like to say that I didn't get to hear what Mr. Serena had to say in regards to number 6, but that's okay. I'm going to file a complaint. I'm in opposition of the sales tax, and this is why. Keep in mind, Board of Supervisors do not work 40-hour weeks. Mr. Hemmingson made $69,428.16 last year, including benefits. Chris Hauer made $60,208.16 last year, which included his Japan trips. Lori Cowan made $64,388.12, and this includes her trips to Washington and other excursions. Bob Berkowitz made $59,668. This includes benefits. And the lowest paid on the board was Roger Gitlin, $56,110.60. Roger is the only supervisor who contributes to the community with his Blight program and Pride and Community program. Jay Serena, he gets $197,711.58. Neil Lopez, $145,037. Elizabeth Cable, County Council, $188,896. Heidi Kunkstel, she went from $120,000 to $183,394. Heather Snow, $160,106, and yet she couldn't even afford a trip to Japan. Chief Probation Officer Ronnie Lehman, $158,087. Barbara Lopez, $137,257. Eric Apperson, $175,678. Richard Schneck, $192,000. He's a lieutenant for Sheriff Department, $192,672. William Stephen, Undersheriff, $162,518. Ed Fleshman, Sergeant, $153,810. Jaron Gill, $133,000. Sarah Ashbury, $129,000. Katrina Durbin, Deputy Sheriff, $123,673. And the list goes on. And you folks think we need to raise our sales tax 1 cent? You're crazy. These people, if they can't live on that kind of money, I live on $40,000 a year. If they can, and I have a very nice place. If they can't live on that money, there is something wrong. You administrators are eating up the taxpayers' money with no benefit. Lastly, I'd like to say that I don't know what SB 217 is. No, I'll address that at the appropriate time. I think Chris Howard, Lori Cowan, and Mr. Hemmingson all support the Antifa. I couldn't believe what was written on the mask of those signs.
3 minutes up. Thank you, Linda. Kylie, is there any other public comment?
I'm going to give it just a couple more seconds, Chair.
Okay.
Yes, there is. 1 second. Robert, you
guys.
are on.
I just wanted to support the other community members that are calling out Supervisor Gitlin. And when he was elected the first time, it was in the newspaper, one of his writings all about him wanting to use the word Negro and trying to figure out how he could use it. And it's always been an issue. But, the one thing I've always looked at as a positive is, when he's not doing this, he's been volunteering to teach at schools and stuff. And so by keeping him in office somewhere, we do keep him out of the education system. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Robert. Any other public comment, Kylie?
Chair, I'm not seeing any more at this time.
Okay, so we'll close the public comment period and move on to our 10:30 timed item, which is to review and discuss the Del Norte County Treasurer's Report, quarter ending June 30th, 2020. Barbara?
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
All right. Okay, so yes, this is my quarterly treasurer's report for June 30th, 2020. This quarter, we ended our portfolio with a balance of $49,564,504. That balance consisted of about 42% in our liquid account, LAIF, at $20 million. Our CDs were about 22% of the portfolio at $11.2 million. Our government agencies or bonds were at 28% of the portfolio, which was right around $14 million. And our mitigation fund is still staying steady, about 5.5% of our portfolio at $2.6 million. So this quarter, as you saw in our percentage of LAIF that we have in our portfolio, I kept extremely liquid. I know summer months are going to be tight, and I know cash flow is going to be tight, and I want to make sure that I have as much money possible available to meet those needs. The school district is still looking potentially for a TRAN or some dry period funding for 2021. Now we know that the state's going to be deferring their apportionments for April, May, and June. So that might affect that reasoning. Dry period funding is something new to the county. We've never done it before, and to a lot of other counties in California. So I am going to be doing some very intense research on this, making sure that we can give them as much as they need, but that we also are meeting our liquidity needs and our cash flow needs. So it's probably something I'll have to get county council involved with, and then reach out to other treasurers for some experience and guidance in that. On the maturity distribution schedule, as you can see, I had quite a few more callables in this graph here, but we did have quite a few called over the quarter. I'm not surprised by it, but it's just sort of the nature of the market right now. So positive note, interest earnings for the quarter were still pretty high, $282,000. Majority of that was LAIF. LAIF is $116,000 in interest earnings, so that's great. We're still seeing a pretty good rate of return in LAIF, which is even better because half of our portfolio is in LAIF. And then you can see here the rates are they're horrible. We have 5-year CDs at 0.5%, 4 and 5-year bullets and callables anywhere from 0.5% to 0.75%. LAIF is still pretty good, 1.21. That's a great rate. I think it's gone down a little bit as of yesterday, but CalTrust is really low as well, 0.5%. Overall, though, the portfolio is looking really good. Agencies, I'm averaging 2%, CDs 2.25%. And my years and terms are only, right around 2.5 years. So that's a good rate of return. And like I showed in the other graph, majority of that is bullets. So we'll be, getting those rate of returns for the near future. So I didn't purchase hardly anything, just a couple CDs at the beginning of the quarter. I knew things were going to drop, so I picked up a couple of CDs. But we did have 1, 2, 3 called maturities, and then, called bonds, and then 2 maturities this quarter. So for the cash flow for the quarter, April was great, May was not, and June was not. And I'm not surprised. There's a combination of just lower revenues, higher expenses getting through the end of the fiscal year. I was planning for it and I'm happy I did. July is going to be a low cash flow as well. We had our PERS unfunded liability payment and then just some miscellaneous school expenses just to close out the fiscal year. With that said, though, I mean, I feel pretty confident in our liquidity right now. And I think that overall in the year, we had the Go bond come through. So we had some cash flow there, but I think we saw about a $4 million positive cash flow for the year. So it's okay. We'll make it through. And if I ever need to sell anything, I'm in a good position to do that with the great rates that we have coming in. So that's all I have for this quarter.
Great, Barbara. Thank you so much.
You're
for that.
welcome.
Any questions from supervisors?
Yes, Barbara, can you hear me okay?
I can.
I have actually two questions.
Okay.
Number one, can you tell me now that the dust is settled on property tax collections, what the impact was on the delinquency rate? Was it below or above or the same as the year prior to pre-COVID? And
I
the
would
second-
say, oh, excuse
Yeah,
me, sorry.
okay,
Go ahead.
I'll ask
Okay.
the second question after you finish. Go right ahead.
Okay. I would say we are pretty darn near the same. I had maybe 30 penalty waiver applications that I was able to approve. All the big players paid on time. I really am happy to report that our delinquency rate is really right at that 5%, which is where it's always been over the years. So kudos to our taxpayers. I'm very happy.
Good. The second part of that extension is, can you quantify the actual revenue losses as the results of the first and part of the second quarter of 2020 due to the COVID-19 shutdown? Can you quantify the losses suffered by the county now that we're back to a quasi-normal state?
Well, the only thing that I have any finger on is, transient occupancy tax. So we're going to see probably about 110,000, maybe more in revenue loss for TOT, which is general fund dollars. As of right now, I think I have about $20,000 that have come in for the quarter. I still have some more accounts that haven't paid yet, but usually for this quarter, we have maybe $130,000 in revenue. So I know TOT is definitely an issue. I can't touch on sales tax. I can't touch on other revenue generating departments, but as far as TOT, it's substantial.
Well, let me just get clarification on the phrasing of that. Last year, pre-COVID, our transient occupancy tax is somewhere between 500,000 and 600,000. Is that correct number?
Yeah, that's about
and
right.
We're going to suffer perhaps a 20% loss. I think you mentioned a little over 100,000 that won't come in as a result of that. So essentially, when all this settles, we will have collected about 80% of expected or projected transient occupancy tax revenues. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes. Yeah. And, thankfully the spring months aren't as bad as the winter months, but they aren't as high as the quarter that we're in now for TOT. So it could have been worse, but it could have been better too.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions from supervisors? Any public comment on the treasurer's report?
Sure, I'm just gonna give it a couple seconds.
Okay.
And I am not seeing any at this time.
Okay, great. Thank you, Barbara. Appreciate the info.
Thank you. Have a great day, everyone.
Okay, and Dr. Raywalt is our 10:35 timed item. If you're still there, Dr. Raywalt, can you give us an update?
Yes, I'm still here. I'm going to keep the update fairly brief today. I think probably everyone's heard most of the news. Certainly nationally and statewide, we still see climbing in numbers, both of case counts and deaths, which is very unfortunate. Locally, we haven't had a lot of change outside of the testing and results from the prison, which was a news topic last week, obviously. I'm still trying to decide whether this represents an outbreak or whether we're just picking up background disease activity. I'm kind of taking comfort from the fact that all those cases identified out there did not present to the hospital. So they didn't even seek medical care. So this was kind of a finding that was sort of what we'd expect if we were doing a large amount of testing all of a sudden, which is essentially what happened out there. 1,000 tests over a couple of days, that's unprecedented for our community. And, we're bound to pick up some disease activity because we know we have it going through the community, at least at a low level. There hasn't been a lot of other developments locally. I've been talking with some local health officers about presenting a position paper to the state about rural counties and some of the more excessive measures that seem to have been handed to us a few weeks ago. And we're about ready to finalize that. See if we can get some relief economically for some of our counties that are clearly not experiencing the same level of activity with this virus as the rest of the state. So that's the biggest news development from us. Our health department continues to do case contact investigation and contact tracing when we can. Obviously, the results for the prison testing were a little bit late coming back. And I just wanted to point out that that's an experience that is new to us relatively, but it's not new to the rest of the state or the rest of the country. That's pretty much the problem nationwide. The testing logjam is huge, and no easy fix, and probably no end in sight in the foreseeable future. I'm still waiting on some test results that are pushing 2 weeks now on myself personally. So we know it's happening, and there's a lot of people working around the country trying to fix it, but it's not an easy problem to solve. And that's about all I wanted to say today. I'll be happy to take some questions if you have any.
Any questions from supervisors? Bob?
Dr. Raywall, with contact tracing taking so long, sometimes 2 and 3 weeks, what good is contact tracing if we can't get things back in a timely manner?
It's not very good at all. So that's the short answer. We are still able to do good contact tracing because the majority of the cases that we've been dealing with before the Pelican Bay testing episode a couple of weeks ago, the majority of those are coming from clinical testing through the hospital, and the hospital has a pretty good turnaround time. They use a lab that is part of Sutter Health down in Sacramento for the majority of their tests. They also have an in-house testing kit, a device that uses some cartridge components that they get sent periodically. So they can do in-house testing and get results back in a few hours, which is a huge advantage when we need to know quickly. And we've taken advantage of that several times when we needed some key information on individuals, who worked in healthcare settings or skilled nursing, stuff like that. So it's a boon for us as a community. So for a large part, we've been able to do contact tracing quickly based on results that we can get quickly. When you get into the testing that gets sent out to labs, which the majority of testing from clinical offices is done that way. And, certainly the testing that was done by Department of Corrections was a send out lab. That's when the turnaround time becomes the issue, because those are taking a long time. Now, there is a new testing strategy that has been out there for about a week and a half from CDPH, trying to prioritize testing to kind of move through those critical need to know testing samples faster, but it's really hard to do on such a large scale. I mean, we're doing 120,000 tests a day in California on the average, or sometimes even higher than that. A lot of testing to move through on a daily basis. So you're right, if we get results that are back 8-9 days later, People are ready to come off the isolation we would have put them on if we'd known about it on day 2. So it loses its value. There's no question about that. Fortunately, the majority of what we can do locally up until now has been done on information that we get literally sometimes within hours of getting test results. And that's been a huge help to us. And we want to keep that going as much as we can.
Dr. Raywalt, the testing program is supposed to end the end of the month. Is that correct? Have we got an extension? Is there any information on that?
I believe you're talking about the Verily site, the site at the high school?
Yeah, I'm sorry, yes.
Yeah, as far as I know, it's still going through August. We haven't heard anything about them pulling it at the end of this month. We were told that these state-sponsored sites are good until the end of August. They may still extend it. We've been asking the state repeatedly to give us some direction, because obviously if we're going to do something different, or if we are expected to take over the management of these sites, we need to understand what's going to be involved in that. So we haven't heard anything different. So we're assuming it's going to go out till the end of August.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from board members?
Yes, Dr. Raywalt, you know, the word indeterminate has come publicly quite a bit, and I've heard reports of indeterminate COVID-19 test results from specimens collected at Pelican Bay State Prison. So Dr. Raywalt, I actually have 2 questions on this, but the first one is, can you clarify what constitutes an indeterminate result?
Well, usually it's a test result that a lot of tests are designed to do kind of a 2-part testing system. So it's sort of an internal control. So it's a test result that meets the boundaries for one of those, but not the other one. So it's a suggestion that it's a positive result, but it's not a confirmed positive result. And beyond that, I think it would get pretty technical to try and describe, and I'm probably not the person to ask such technical questions. And usually what the recommendation is that you follow up those indeterminate results with another test to see if it is truly positive. And that's been the experience when we've run into this before on occasion. And you're right, there were quite a number reported out at the prison as being indeterminate. So they're probably going to be testing all those folks again during their testing cycle going on this week. So hopefully we'll get some better information. I just wanted to stress, you know, the testing that they're going to be doing this week, and if they continue to do it going forward, and certainly the testing that they're doing on inmates, those are going to be key metrics for us to understand, you know, the quantity and the connection to earlier test results. So we're really kind of hopeful that we get some useful information from this next round of testing.
So just in clarification on that, Dr. Raywalt, ongoing testing right now at Pelican Bay State Prison, Monday, Tuesday, and tomorrow, I believe. Are these cases that were deemed indeterminate, or do they be reevaluated, and will you report that accordingly if they prove not to be COVID cases?
Well, here's the thing. When you do testing like this, which is kind of, it's a mandatory testing scheme, if you pick up cases that are resolved, you may still have positive tests. So in other words, they're not infectious anymore. They were infected a while back. They may not have known they were infectious, but they may be out of that window, but they're still testing positive. We see this quite often after people have resolved the virus, that when we go back to do a follow-up test, they keep coming back positive. And sometimes that goes on for weeks. So, you know, we kind of think that that's part of what we're seeing out there, is because you can't really tell the difference just with a snapshot view of a single day or a couple of days of testing when you pick up all these positive cases. Because if people are asymptomatic, they don't know if they've been infected quite a while ago or if their infection is active. So yeah, all these indeterminate cases should be lumped together with the next round of testing. And if they come back positive, then we're going to say, well, most likely you were positive the first time and you're probably out of the infectious window. They come back negative, we're not sure how to interpret that, whether that means that they had an old infection that we were just picking up a trace of at the time. I mean, this gets into some pretty technical questions about epidemiology, and we're probably gonna have to sit down with some of the staff from the prison and from CDCR and kind of go over this and figure out what it really represents.
Well, you can understand the alarm it raises when there's a sudden spike as
Right.
we have had on at least 2 occasions. We were one point COVID-free, and then there was a spike, and now there was another spike at Pelican Bay, and it sounds like there's a scaffolding issue as to the kind of COVID virus. But you've made yourself clear on that. The second question I had is, I'm not sure if it was last meeting, the meeting before, several weeks ago, you mentioned during your report that there was a positive employee COVID infection at Sutter Coast Hospital. Have there been any additional positive cases from the hospital staff since that original case involving in obstetrics was reported? And that's probably going back about two months or so.
I believe there's been one, but they weren't a clinical case. They weren't a clinical staff.
Okay, so it's a pretty COVID-free environment is what you're telling me.
Yeah, well, it's wrong to characterize any healthcare facility as being completely COVID-free. I think, we kind of always assume that there's a risk that because they're dealing with so many people coming in who are potentially infectious. And then certainly the people we identify, like I mentioned earlier, the majority of them are found at the hospital. I think, Sutter, like every hospital, is doing everything they can to keep that in mind whenever they're dealing with patients when they come in. And I think they've actually done pretty well. We haven't really had any reports other than what was going on in May, related to the obstetrical department. We haven't had any new reports of any clinical healthcare workers with the virus, which I think is really good. It's probably as good a report as we can expect from a hospital like that, given the circumstances. And there are certainly some hospitals where they have active cases all the time. And, they're dealing with workplace exposures almost on a daily basis. We haven't experienced that here.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments from board members? Okay, thank you, Dr. Rayrol. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Keep up the good work.
Chair, are we going to ask for public comment?
Oh, sure. Can we get some public comment?
I have one. Hold on. Linda, you're on.
Yes, Dr. Raywell, I heard you on on KCRE, and you said that there was absolutely no reason why people should not be wearing masks. And I'd like to know, could you explain the medical evidence that supports that comment?
Sure. There's a lot of studies going back many years that have compared various kinds of cloth masks versus N95s. And the reason those studies were done back then were to prove the importance of using an N95 kind of device in clinical settings, because they were so much better. But the real take home for us from those studies is that none of those other face coverings didn't provide some benefit. And they about blocking droplets and particle droplet and transmission across rooms, and there was a lot of technical ways that they were measuring this. But a lot of those simple face coverings, simply like a kitchen towel or something like that, showed that they could improve blockage of droplets by 30%, 50%, sometimes as high as 70%. Now that's clearly not good enough to use in the clinical setting compared to an N95, which they were testing against. But that does show that all those things have some benefit to improving reduction of moving droplets that might carry infectious particles with them back and forth from people. And that's really the basis for this. It's not that it's a perfect system. We recognize that homemade masks or even masks that you can buy online now, they're not as effective as N95s, but they're definitely better than nothing. And that's the key thing about this. And that's the heart of the medical evidence about this, is that we just know that they do help.
But not all people can wear masks. That's how I took your statement. Everybody has to wear a mask. There's no reason why you can't wear a mask, but there is reasons why people can't wear masks.
Well, I mean, there are some people who struggle with wearing a mask, and it's the risk to them is probably not worth the benefit to the rest of us. And masks really don't take away anything else that we talk about. So, social distance is still, kind of the key thing that we want people to remember. Keep your distance from people, especially if you think you're sick. You shouldn't be out and about to start with. But if you have to go out, or if you're not sure, you have to keep your distance. And, wearing a mask is just another layer of protection. So we kind of want the combination is the best, doing all the things together that we want people to do all the time. It's the best protection.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there any other public comment, Kylie?
I'm just gonna give it a couple more seconds. And Chair, I'm not seeing any at this time.
Okay, again, Dr. Raywalt, thank you. Keep up the good work. Appreciate your.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, we're going to move on to the urgency item that we added to the agenda having to do with SB 217. Heather, I don't know if you're on and want to speak to this.
Yes, I'm here. Good
Okay,
morning.
great. Morning.
Thank you for adding this as an urgency item. It was brought to my attention after the posting of the agenda, and SB 217 will be heard in the Assembly Health Committee on August 4th, which is why action's needed today. So I believe you have the draft letter I submitted to the clerk for your consideration, which goes in depth about the issue, but I'm happy to give a brief overview for anybody that's listening. The letter is, well, I'd like the board to send the letter to Assemblymember Wood stating that we oppose SB 217 unless amended. The bill would create a licensing structure for day camps, which is a good and positive thing to do, but it places the sole responsibility for oversight on these camps on local health departments, which goes really beyond our scope of expertise. And there are, in fact, existing more appropriate agencies that could provide that oversight. So the letter goes into more detail about some alternatives, but the hope really is that the relevant stakeholders would convene to discuss a more appropriate regulatory structure, as there are a few reasonable options. I would just add, my understanding is that CSAC, RC, and all of the state public health advocacy organizations are all on the same page with the stance of opposing unless amended. So I think it's a pretty easy sell. And thank you for your consideration.
Yes, Heather, thank you. And if you want to get any further information, I did talk with our CRC staff, and if you'll get a hold of Tracy at RCRC, she would love to discuss with you also.
Supervisor Hemmingson, if I may ask Ms. Snow a question, the proposed amended language, have you seen the amendment language?
I have not seen language. I believe they want to bring together the organizations to create new language and decide who would be more appropriate to oversee the service.
Okay, you had mentioned that there are several more appropriate agencies that could better address the registration licensing. So I was just curious if any of those were proposed in the amendment language.
I did not see new language, but an example that they gave, the California Department of Social Services currently licenses daycare facilities, and day camps are similarly often a solution for childcare, and so they could be similarly regulated by the same entity.
If it were to be housed in local government, what would be the best suited language for Delaware County?
I think that the option of CDSS sounds reasonable. The reason it's not good for us is because it's not in our expertise. So I would really rely on these other organizations to speak to that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Heather or comments from board members? Is there any public comment on this, Kylie?
Yes, give me 1 second. Linda, you're on.
Yes, I'm still not sure what SB 217 is, but I do want you to know under Government Code 54956.5, A dire emergency for placing things on the agenda is defined as crippling disaster, mass destruction, terrorist act, threatened terrorist act that poses peril so immediate and significant that requiring a legislative body to provide 1 hour notice before holding an emergency meeting may endanger the public health, safety, or both. This is not an emergency or urgent item. And so for you folks to just vote it in without even giving a public an idea of what the hell you're talking about is just unbelievable. Unbelievable. That's why Zoom meetings are not good. That's why you need public meetings. I need to know what 217 is. Hello, anybody? Nobody knows what SB 217 is? Guess not. All right. I got some writing to do today.
Kylie, is there any other public comment?
Chair, I'm not seeing any at this time.
Okay, I would open it up for a motion then.
Chair, if we may, statements by the public were made, need to be clarified by county council, please.
Well, the standard is not an emergency. If that's the statement you're getting at, there is a definition of emergency, but if you just look at the next section in there, it's a 2/3 vote that immediate action is needed. The letter has to be sent to a legislative session before the next board meeting. That's immediate, that's necessary. It's not an emergency.
Thank you, council.
Okay, so I would be looking for a motion still.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any more comments or questions from board members? Kylie, would you please poll the vote?
Supervisor Gitlin?
Yes.
Supervisor Berkowitz?
Yes.
Supervisor Cowan?
Yes.
Supervisor Howard?
Yes.
Chair Hemmingson?
Yes, and Kylie, would you also send a copy of this letter to RCRC?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to item number 20, which is to approve and adopt the resolution of the Del Norte County Board of Supervisors submitting the Del Norte County transactions and use tax ordinance to be presented to and approved by the electorate at the November 3rd, 2020 general election, as requested by Jay. Oh, I'm sorry, by Joel.
Yeah, we've discussed the details of this quite a bit. I won't belabor them here. This is a resolution that places the ordinance on the election. So the ordinance attached as an exhibit. The people will vote and they need to pass it by a simple majority. In order to place it on the ballot, the board needs to pass it by 4/5. So that's what we need today. If there are any other questions about the content of the ordinance, I can answer those. It's basically a state form that's dictated by the Revenue Taxation Code.
Great. Thank you. So I would entertain a motion.
Chair, I'd make that motion to approve and adopt the resolution of the Del Norte County Board of Supervisors submitting the Del Norte County transactions and use tax ordinance to be presented to and approved by the electorate at the November 3rd, 2020 general election.
And I'll second that.
Is there any public comment, Kylie?
Chair, I'm just going to give it a couple seconds.
Sure.
And I am not seeing any at this time.
Okay. Any further discussion or questions from board members?
I have a comment to make, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I want to clarify to those who are out there listening, this is a motion to put it on the ballot for you folks to decide. And obviously, County Council Joel Campbell Blair made the statement it has to pass by 4/5, and I'm going to be a negative vote on that. This is no time for our county to support a 1% general sales tax relief when so many of us are hurting? So many of this is a burden on people. And it's always so sad and disheartening to see the only answer we have to solve any problem is adding another tax. This one doesn't even have a sunset clause in it. This will raise our tax, if you folks vote for it, sales tax to 8.5% in November. 7.25% plus another 0.25% for the sunsetting, that's in 2022, fair tax. So you have my no vote on putting this on the ballot.
Chair Hemmingson, if I can make a statement, thank you.
Sure, you may, because I was about to, but go ahead.
Okay, yeah, if I could just weigh in on some of the reflections and opinions of Supervisor Gitlin. We have employees too that fix the potholes in our roads, that protect our public safety, which we just passed resolution through unanimously through this board. This is an important step in our community to recognize the folks that work for us, and more importantly, provide those services that are critical to this community. The state of California has clearly said to Del Norte County, if you had paid attention at any point in time, which I sometimes believe you don't, but the state of California has clearly said you take action first, Del Norte County, first, and then we'll consider any other ask that could come to supplement your general fund for those services that we continue to provide. And I want to make that very clear. I'm fiscally conservative when it comes to this stuff, but you full well know, Supervisor Gillen, after even talking to Ms. Lopez right now, the hit our general fund is taking. I don't want to go back and ask our electorate for this, but we have no choice if we're going to survive. So I get what you're trying to do. However, it's not.
No, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't. But your opinion is your opinion. Mine is mine. And go ahead, find another tax that you need. Okay, go ahead. I'm done.
You're breaking up. Hopefully you're calling on me, Supervisor.
I was.
Thank you. You know, just this last meeting, we passed a resolution supporting law enforcement and first responders. Now we come back and we're asking, but wait a minute, we didn't really mean it. All right. Well, I think we have to show today that we did mean it, and we're going to leave it up to the public. We're not going to dictate what you should think and how you should vote. We're going to leave it up to you, the public, that you can tell us what you believe and how important law enforcement and first responders are important to you and this community. And that's what this is all about.
Well said, Supervisor Berkowitz. We're not trying to, Roger is trying to keep this away from the public. We are trying to put it out to the public. So well said. So is there any other?
If I may, I have a public comment. Somebody raised their hand for this item.
Okay. Okay.
And Linda, you are on.
You know, this 1 cent sales tax is not about first responders, and it's not about law enforcement, because as I well demonstrated earlier, how much they were making, that's a lie to the public, a flat out lie. You folks spent $28,000 on a consult to see if people would vote another 1 cent sales tax. We pay our taxes every year. And the only person who benefits from it is Mr. Serena. And I mean, these people making close to $200,000 a year is outrageous. And you go downtown and you go throughout the county, and what do you see? Nothing. Because you're spending your money, our money, on your own wages. And this is outrageous that you even write it up as a support for law enforcement and for the first responders. It's outrageous because they're doing just fine. So you folks better quit lying to the people. Thank you.
Any other public comment, Kylie?
There is no other public comment, but CAO Serena would like to say something.
Chairman,
Go
could
ahead,
I quote from this resolution so that people can be very clear?
Sure.
To support vital local services, including providing support for law enforcement, for emergency response, repairing potholes and maintaining streets, preparing for and responding to natural disasters and health emergencies, maintaining emergency dispatch services for fire, ambulance, and law enforcement, maintaining jail and criminal justice services, addressing blight and public nuisances, and other general services and infrastructure. Shall the measure be adopted, imposing a 1% sales tax in the unincorporated area of the county until ended by voters, providing $1.2 million annually with citizen oversight and independent audits. Nowhere in there does that say that it goes towards any other salaries. It is specific to what that is.
Thank you, Jay.
Pretty clear language to me, Chairman Hemmingson. I'm sorry that certain individuals in our community can't read that clearly.
Thank you, Jay, for reading that.
Let it
And
up to
with
the
that,
voters, as
Kylie,
Supervisor Berkowitz stated.
Kylie, would you pull the vote?
Okay, Supervisor Berkowitz,
Yes.
Supervisor Gitlin,
No.
Supervisor Cowan,
Yes.
Supervisor Howard,
Yes.
Chair Hemmingson.
Yes. Okay, and with that, we will move on to legislative and budget issues. Jay?
Are we unmuted?
Yeah, we're muted.
Okay. Just a couple of updates. Number one, we are reviewing and waiting to see what happens at the federal level in regards to the CARES Act and any other stimulus package that might be passed. There have been proposals put forward by the Republican and Democrat parties. Right now, there are a number of items that are key to our future as far as the budget is concerned. There are proposals on one side to amend the CARES Act to allow some of the CARES Act to be used to offset lost revenue. There's, on the other side, proposals to offset revenue with additional money. And obviously that's out of our control, but we are lobbying and have lobbied for additional support for those lost revenues that were discussed earlier. And budget-wise, some of the questions that were asked of the treasurer should be more asked of the budget team. And those will be coming back to you soon as the year end is being closed by the auditor controller. We'll know more in regards to what final revenue and expenditures look like and what our fund balance looks like. We'll be meeting next week as a budget team to go over those. And I will give another update at the next meeting with the information that we have. It will be, you'll be presented in September with a balanced budget. And at this point, it does look like there is a way to get there, but there are other sources out there that may affect that, and we'll see how those come down.
Okay, anybody got anything else? Okay. Kylie, did I miss anything?
No, we got everything covered.
Okay, with that, then we are adjourned. Our next regular meeting will be August 11th, 2020. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Have a great week.
You too.